Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Glad to have you back. That means that you decided not to run away, but also the internet is forever. So I'm guessing even if you're watching this 10 years from now, you clearly decided to come back after the first episode. So we have been looking at we started by looking at the book of Proverbs, and we're going to continue looking at the book of Proverbs through this series we're calling Proverbs for Life, or Proverbs for Wisdom, or Wisdom for Life. We shall decide the proper name of the channel and the episodes as time goes on. Yes. Also, depending on your feedback, you can feel free to leave comments, leave reviews, whatever you feel, whatever you like, whatever you dislike as well. We like all feedback. So last time round, we looked at verse 1 to verse 6 of Proverbs, and just want to have a brief recap of it. We talked about the sports car that is not meant for the forest trail. That's not meant to be an off-roader, because you can't take a lovely. There's the car that I used to like back in the day, when I was younger, Ferrari Testarossa, only because of its name. Yeah, only because of its name. That's the only reason I liked. Also, I liked the color red when I was younger, so the Ferrari was the car that sort of stood out. So Ferrari Testarossa. Imagine having a Ferrari Testarossa and you decide to drive it in the, let's say, in the Alpine mountains, or maybe here in Uganda. Imagine you're taking it down to your village where there's no tarmac road and there's Maram road. And there are some parts where a truck has been loaded with matoke and tomatoes and so many other so much produce, and it has run through the road, and the road is running through a swamp, and yeah, there are so many gullies and ditches and mud. Yeah, a Ferrari Testarossa would not do well on such a road. And that's the analogy we gave to wisdom as well. You've entered the car of wisdom, and wisdom is telling you, let us stay on the racetrack for efficiency and for success for your life. But then you decide, no, I'm going to take you where a lorry and a tractor is meant to go. And you're trying to take your Ferrari Testarossa on that mud trail. It's not going to work. You're going to be, well, you'll be stuck after the first 10 meters, because there's no way it's going to run through those gullies. It's not going to run through that swamp, because it's not meant for that. So it's the same thing with the vehicle of wisdom. Once we decide to perceive wisdom and receive wisdom and enter that vehicle called wisdom, we have to decide that we can only drive where the sports car of wisdom will allow us to drive, where it is designed to drive. And that's when we put the sports car of wisdom on the racetrack that is designed for the sports car of wisdom. That is when you will be more effective. That's when you will have the proper speed and acceleration that the car is designed for, that wisdom is designed for. So wisdom will dictate where you're going to drive, how you're going to drive. When we have wisdom of if wisdom in this case is a Humvee, then a racetrack is not the place for it. If it's a big what's this called? If it's a big military car, then you can't it's not going to be as effective on a race car as it is in a war zone. So that's the same thing with wisdom. Depending on there are different verses, different thoughts of wisdom for different situations and scenarios. There is wisdom for the racetrack, but there's also wisdom for the off-roader, for that trail as well. So depending on where the word of wisdom needs to be effective, it can only be effective in that space where it needs to be effective. And that is essentially what we're trying to do through this series. Once you get a word of wisdom, you know that I have to apply it in the place where it needs to be applied for it to be effective. And that is how you will in verse 4 it tells us to give prudence to the simple. That is how you will be prudent. Do not be unwise and pick a Ferrari Testarossa and take it to the off-road trail. That is foolishness now. Pick the wisdom of the Ferrari Testarossa and put it on a racetrack, and it will give you amazing results on the racetrack where it is designed. Pick wisdom which is a Formula 1 car, and put it on the Formula 1 track, and it will give you amazing results at hairpin turns at 150 miles per hour. That's what it's designed for on that track, on that racetrack. Put it on the pothole, riddled streets of Kampala. It may not be as effective if you take it down to Katwe, where there are too many people walking around, vendors on the side of the road. You're going to be like, you'll be frustrated in your Formula 1 car trying to drive to the taxi park on our Kampala streets. It won't work. But if the old taxi park has been emptied and you have it all to yourself, there you can have fun. But our life is not. But that will be in isolation, and our life is not in isolation. Once you pick the words of wisdom from this book, the book of Proverbs, you're going to be applying it in the real world situation, real world scenarios, and it's going to give you ways of navigating different situations in your marriage, in your relationships, in school, in your work life, in so many other aspects of your life. How to deal with relatives, how to deal with employment, how to deal with business, so many areas of your life. And that is what wisdom is. It is not just a fancy race car that has to be on a racetrack, but it is a versatile bit of different words put together that will enable you to have excellence in life. Remember, we talked about Joshua chapter 1. Tells us that the words, this book of the law, in this case we shall say this book of the Proverbs, shall not depart from your mouth, and you shall meditate on it day and night, and then you shall attain good success. Yes? If you want to attain good success, this is where we need to be. Getting these words of wisdom, getting them and meditating upon them, and that is how we shall be able to go forward. And Proverbs 1 verse 5 says, a wise man will hear and increase learning. That is one of the purposes we should have for at the end of this. At the end of every episode, really, you must be looking at, what have I learned? Am I wise? If I am wise, have I increased my learning? And if I have increased my learning, it says that, and a man of understanding will attain wise counsel. So a wise man will hear and increase learning. Then the second part is, and if that wise man who has increased learning, who has had and increased learning, is wise and is a man of understanding. Remember remember what we talked about in verse 2 tells us to know wisdom and instruction. That's the first thing, to know wisdom and instruction. Then to perceive the words of understanding. So you know it, you see the signpost says, do not enter, or it says, do not hoot in this zone, or something like that. That you know wisdom and understanding, you know it. But as you meditate on it day and night, as the scripture encourages us to do, then you will become a man of understanding, because it says that to perceive the words of understanding. You can only perceive words of understanding when you've meditated on the words of wisdom and instruction that you have seen. When you see the words of wisdom and instruction, and then you meditate on them, that is how you perceive the words of understanding. Yes? And so verse 5 tells us, a wise man will hear and increase learning. That's what a wise man does. He hears and increases learning. And a man of understanding will attain wise counsel. So you can hear and receive, hear and increase learning, but you will not have the second part, the understanding. It is the man of understanding who will attain wise counsel. When you've attained wise counsel, that's now when you've now attaining wise counsel, like we said in the first episode, is now when you've received the vehicle of wisdom. Once you've received the vehicle of wisdom, is now when you'll enter it, sit in it, and drive on the road that it is meant for. It's like having a phone with internet, and then you decide to never use the internet. You might have your internet connection might be at 200 Mbps, But then if you never actually go to your search engine and search something, or if you go to YouTube and try to play a video, or go to TikTok or something, if you never actually use the phone, you will never actually receive the benefits of having this ginormous Mbps packet that you have. So that's what wisdom is, and that is what we need to that's what we need to aspire to. We need to aspire to be a wise man who hears and increases learning, but also be a man of understanding who will attain wise counsel. Yes, so that is what we need to be. And you have to make the choice. You have to make the choice to continue to receive, to see the words of wisdom, not just see them, but also perceive and perceive the words of understanding. You see the words of wisdom and meditate upon the words of wisdom and instruction, and you receive. That's when you perceive understanding. And once you have those two things locked down, that is when you will start to move effectively as a wise person. Because verse 5 tells us, a wise man will hear and increase learning, and a man of understanding will attain wise counsel. So that is what we want you to become. Become a wise man who hears and increases in learning, but also beyond that, become a man of understanding. A man of understanding is one who has perceived words of understanding. And the person of man of understanding, man or woman of understanding, if I may say, is one who will then attain wise counsel. That means that once you've been someone who has attained wise counsel is someone who has essentially picked it up and has begun to use it. You've not just seen the instructions, because the instruction manual, if you get let's say a new television, it has a manual, an instruction manual. But if you do not understand the instruction manual, you will not be able to set up the television. So that's what it is. Wisdom, the book of Proverbs, is the television given to you with an instruction manual. The television in this case is your life with the instruction manual. The instruction manual is the book of Proverbs for you to know wisdom and instruction. That's what the instruction manual is. That's the first part. You have received and you know the instructions, the instruction manual. But if you do not understand it, if you do not perceive the words of understanding, if you don't read the instructions and understand them, you'll not be able to set up your life, which is a television, and be effective in your life. So these are the things that we want to take a journey on together and make sure that we see this coming to the end. Yes, so in the next episode, we'll talk more about all this, and you will be blessed. God bless you. See you in the next episode.